We all know Victor Wembanyama is a generational talent. However, in the NBA, one player alone can't win you a championship. It's a team sport. So today we're going to go over 5 players who we think would be the perfect fit next to Wemby. And a disclaimer, I'm not saying that the Spurs will get these players, but in terms of pure fit, these are the guys. Okay, before we start listing off our first guy, let me just tell you that Trae Young isn't on this list. And that's because that's the most obvious choice. We can all agree that he is hands down the best fit for Wemby, not only due to his playstyle, but because the Spurs actually have the pieces to get him. But with the Hawks having the #1 pick in this year's draft, he may stay in Atlanta. But with that being said, the first player who we think would fit perfectly with him is Donovan Mitchell. This may surprise some of you, but I think this would be the perfect pairing. There were reports that Mitchell was growing frustrated with his teammates due to their lack of maturity and other things. And although a few days ago he came out and called those reports cap, I do think that there's some truth to that no matter how many times he comes out and denies it. Donovan Mitchell is a veteran, someone who's been in the playoffs almost every year of his young career. But when you look at the Cavs roster, it's filled with inexperienced young guys like Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, and Max Struss. Literally no one other than Mitchell has any winning experience. Of course, you could throw in Tristan Thompson in there, but he isn't really a big contributor anymore like he was in 2016. I could be reaching, but it always seemed to me like Donovan Mitchell looked out of place with the Cavs, like it was just a one-man army in big games. This is something I noticed in the regular season as well. It just all came to the forefront in this year's playoffs versus the Celtics. His running mate Darius Garland only scored more than 15 points once in 5 games, which includes scoring a whopping 11 points in the closeout game in 44 freaking minutes. Evan Mobley was actually pretty good on both ends throughout the series, but he just wasn't impactful enough as a scorer in crunch time when it really mattered. Karis LeVert shot terrible from 3, and just like Mobley, he didn't do much when it mattered most, which all ties into being inexperienced. Mitchell is 27 years old. He wants to win now. And that's not going to happen with the Cavs. And I know what you're gonna say. If he wants to win now, why would he go to San Antonio? Well, let me say this. Wemby is basically already an offensive all-star and a defensive player of the year candidate. He will most likely already be a better overall player than Darius Garland, Mobley, and Jarrett Allen this upcoming season. And also, once Mitchell lands with the Spurs, it will be much easier to bring in more free agents. Maybe not stars, but high-quality role players. The reason these two will work so well is because the head of the snake. Mitchell is a great leader. We've seen it in Utah and in Cleveland. No matter if his team is winning or losing, he seems to always be positive and uplifting. That mentality would be perfect in San Antonio of all places, where they live and die by having a great culture. Then, of course, on the court, Mitchell demands a lot of attention. When that man wants to score, he can score on anyone. So that would open up things for Victor down low. But most importantly, the pick and roll would be insane. Not only is he an amazing attacker off the pick and roll, but he's an underrated passer who really knows how to utilize his big men. Let me know what you think. Is Donovan Mitchell a perfect fit for Wemby? The next guy on the list isn't really that good of a player at all, but even with that being said, something tells me he and Wemby would be pretty solid together. And that player is LeBron James. All jokes aside, while we know this isn't happening, it would still be a match made in heaven. If you thought LeBron and AD's pick and roll was unstoppable, just imagine a 7'4" center who can move just as good as AD on the end of James's assists. This pairing would really benefit Wemby from an IQ standpoint. LeBron is widely known as one of the smartest players ever, but I still think we undervalue just how much that IQ can rub off on his teammates, especially his favorite teammates such as AD and Austin Reeves, and in this scenario, Victor Wembanyama. It's no secret that AD did become a much better overall player once he teamed up with LeBron. He would even tell you that himself. We, as fans, only get a glimpse of LeBron's intelligent mind from he and JJ Redick's podcast. AD is gaining that knowledge in person on a daily basis for multiple years. Wemby would see firsthand how an all-time great winner prepares for a game, takes care of his body, and handles the press and the media, among other things that we as fans have no clue about. It would sort of be like when LeBron went to Miami. Dwayne Wade and the Heat's culture in general taught LeBron what it meant to be a winner. Most importantly, what it took to be a champion. It could be the same thing for a young Wemby, but let me know what you think. The third player on our list is way more accessible than a LeBron James will be, and I'm talking about Kevin Durant. After another underwhelming season for the Suns, an aging KD may be looking to join another team, and no matter how much he tries to deny it, KD cares about his legacy. He's well aware of the outside noise saying how he can't win without Curry and Clay, which, as of right now, is true. What better way to prove everyone wrong than to go team up with a young star in Wemby? Just the thought of these two 7-foot monsters on the same squad gives me the chills. Defensively, KD was pretty much the Suns' best rim protector, which is not a good thing at all. But with the Spurs, he would be playing with arguably the best rim protector in basketball. This would take a lot of pressure off of KD in terms of reasonability on defense. Offensively, he can literally fit in any offense. However, with the Spurs, this would be the first time in his career he would play with a center being his second co-star. With the Thunder, it was Russ, a guard. In Golden State, it was Steph. In Brooklyn, it was Kyrie, and in Phoenix, it's Devin Booker. I'm not sure what that really means, but it's just an interesting fact. It would be very interesting to see how KD would mold with a center like Wemby. I know KD doesn't fit with the Spurs timeline since he's 35 and will be 36 when the next season starts, but it could still be a great pickup depending on what the Spurs give up. Maybe something like a package containing Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Blake Wesley, and the Spurs' 8th overall pick could be enough. But let's hop back onto Earth for a second because that's not happening. KD realistically only has like 2, maybe 3 years left before he starts regressing hard as a player. And by that time, Wemby will be like 22 or 23 years old. So no, I don't think it would be wise to give up Vassell and Johnson along with the 8th pick to get a 3-year rental. But let's still not ignore the fact that they would be a great duo on both ends of the court. The 4th player is none other than Luka Dončić. Like I stated at the beginning of the video, I'm not saying the Spurs can even get some of these players, but in terms of pure fit, Luka and Wemby would be box office money. Maybe even more box office than a Trae Young and Wemby duo. Now that would be an interesting debate. Let me know in the comments which of the two you think would be better for Wemby, Ice Trae or Luka Magic. Luka has that James Harden effect on centers, where they can make even the worst center in the NBA look like prime Wilt Chamberlain. With how flashy Luka is, and with how freakish and jaw-dropping of a talent Wemby is, I think the Spurs would be the most watched team in basketball. It would basically be Magic and Kareem all over again if you really think about it. And speaking of the James Harden effect, he is our 5th player. And no matter what you think about Harden, you can't deny his brilliance as a facilitator. This 2024 season, he was 5th in assists per game, 8th in potential assists per game, and 6th in assist points created. So his impact as a passer and decision maker is elite, even at 34 years old. When you think of the all-time great pick and roll ball handlers, you think of players like John Stockton, Chris Paul, Steve Nash, and James Harden. Yes, he's in that conversation 100%. Which is why he and Wemby would be unstoppable. If you look at the numbers, when Harden played with Embiid in Philly, they were literally the best pick and roll duo in basketball. They were both too dominant to be stopped in that action. Harden and Wemby could pull off similar results. As an honorable mention, I'll throw Darius Garland into the mix as well. I didn't add him to the video because I'm still not completely sure how well they would fit, but after gaining even more playoff experience this year, I think it could be interesting to see him in a Spurs uniform. He would without a doubt answer all of the questions surrounding the Spurs not having a playmaker. But would you want Garland as your main or co-star though? That's the real question, especially if James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, and Trae Young are accessible. Let me know what you guys think. What player, excluding Trae Young, do you think would work best with Victor Wembanyama? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.